Hi, my name is Anna Lam, and I am happy to be an RBC Emerging Artist. We just did a Northern tour, and a lot of people are like, I can relate to that. I have been through that. I felt that. To understand there's a balance to everything. There's so many things in my life that I'm passionate about, such as activism, talking about Inuit culture and bringing forward the injustices in our community, that I could do all that through film, and I can do what I love through film. To acknowledge how we're all facing different hardship and to have compassion and empathy. No matter what you're dealing with, you are not alone. And through community, we can see the light. You come from a small town and you're like, you don't expect something like that to happen. You don't expect to be a part of like something huge like that, but just an absolutely beautiful situation altogether. Auditions come and go. Don't let it take away from the fun of acting and your passion of acting. Trickster was so much fun. Trickster was such an amazing production to be a part of, and seeing how much conscious effort was put into making it a very safe space, and a space that Indigenous creators and Indigenous actors and crew feel like they want to be a part of and feel like they're welcomed in. And this was family. It was family.
I didn't think you had a fun side.
Them sound like fighting words.
Well, you're all reclaimed this, decolonized that.
You got it. Check this out. Hardcore resistance with a dash of sparkle, if you haven't noticed. So for any youth that see this video, I would hope that they take those chances, take those opportunities, and you never know where it's going to take you. You never know what's going to happen. That's how I got here.
Hi, my name is Simon Tabazi, and I'm happy to be an RBC Emerging Artist. Since I was young, I just had creative energy, and I love stories. Halifax, it's a small film community. You do have the advantage of it being a small community, right? Everybody gets a chance. Short films are huge. Short films are a really big part of getting started and breaking into sort of film and TV. I had done a bunch of student films that we didn't even put into festivals. We were just kind of making them for the fun of it. But they did kind of set up the groundwork for getting in front of the camera and just not being too afraid.
Look, man, last favoring you out for good. All right?
I said I'm done. I'm not like you.
You're not like me. Yo, what's like me, man? Hey, what's like me?
That moment where you do get the call and they're like, hey, they want to give you the role, seeing that it's worked, because there's a lot of times it doesn't work. So it's just it's a great feeling,
I still want to bring them some up-home music, show them how we do.
30, 40 years, if I can still be evolving and, just kind of growing with the audience, right? That is the goal, right, for me, the work. The work is the goal.
Hi, my name is Anik Sheedy McClellan. All of us at Real Canada are happy to welcome you to the first live stream in our anti-racism programming. There are over 12,000 of you participating, and we're really looking forward to interacting virtually with you to discuss Black realities in Canada. This live stream is taking place across the country. We've all become accustomed to hearing Indigenous territorial acknowledgements, and we would like to take this opportunity to truly reflect on Canada's situation on the traditional Indigenous territories, treaty territories, and unceded lands across Turtle Island. We do this in the spirit of reconciliation with the many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis group who we join today. The work we do here at Real Canada would not be possible without the important contributions from all of our sponsors: the Government of Canada, Telefilm Canada, the Government of Ontario, Ontario Arts Council, Bell Media, CBC, Ontario Creates, the City of Toronto, and Cineplex. Thank you for making all of this possible. There are 350 schools participating from all across the country. So when we first launched this new programming, we weren't sure how many schools would be able to participate, because it's truly unnecessary to mention that this year has been unusual. Some of you are joining us from classrooms, and some of you are doing remote learning. Some of you are watching live, and some of you are watching a recording. But we are so pleased to have you all join this important conversation, and we welcome all of you. We have schools and students who are tuning in from every province and every territory, from Porter Creek Secondary School in Whitehorse, Yukon in the north, to F.J. Brennan in Windsor, Ontario in the south. In the middle of the country, we have Balfour Collegiate in Regina, Saskatchewan, Thrive Community Youth Network in St. John's, Newfoundland, and Stratford Hall in Vancouver, BC in the west. We know that watching films and sharing our reactions and our thoughts and our feelings it's a way to connect, and it's a way to build community and to learn from one another. So we thank you for joining us and for joining each other today. If you haven't signed into Meeting Pulse yet, I would invite you to do so now. It's at realcanada.ca/black-realities. There you'll be able to connect with students all over the country using Meeting Pulse. You can react with emojis, you can answer prompts, and you can answer polls, and you can submit questions for Charles. We also encourage you to read each other's comments. We'll be addressing some of the questions and the discussion points later on in the live stream. But to begin the live participation in Meeting Pulse, I would invite you all to visit the poll section and to answer the very first poll. We would like you to write in 1 or 2 words that best describe how you felt after watching the film, The Skin We're In. We'll be taking all of the words that you submit and making a word cloud that we'll be able to share with you later on in the live stream. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the host of today's show, Garvia Bailey. Garvia is a broadcaster, a host, a producer, a writer, and co-founder of the online radio station Jazzcast. She spent 10 years with the CBC in various roles, including as host, columnist, and commentator on a variety of radio programs such as Metro Morning, CBC Music, Big City, Small World, and as a commentator on The National. Garvia is currently producing and hosting a podcast and a video series on Black Canada with the Media Girlfriends production company for Historica Canada. So welcome, Garvia.
Thank you, Anik. It's so wonderful to be here. I am thrilled to be your host for this show. And Anik, we're going to see you later on, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. See you soon. Welcome to over 12,000 students from across the country who are participating with us. What a treat this is. This live stream is the first in a 3-part series on Black and Indigenous realities in Canada. So today we will be discussing Black realities and anti-Black racism. Next week, many of you will be participating in the second live stream on Indigenous realities. It takes place on December the 1st with activist and filmmaker Sarang Fox and host Ronnie Dean Harris. So that's going to be pretty amazing. So all of you have watched Charles Officer's documentary, The Skin We're In, and we are about to bring him on to talk about it with you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Charles. Charles was born in Toronto. He began his career as a hockey player, if you can believe it, and was even drafted by the NHL to play for the Calgary Flames. Amazing. However, his hockey career was cut short due to injury. So he went into the world of filmmaking and has never looked back. He is a multi-talented, passionate, award-winning filmmaker. I'm so excited to introduce him to you. But first, a few highlights from his career.
Named one of 10 to watch by Playback magazine, Charles Officer is an acclaimed Canadian director. He originally studied visual art and worked as a professional hockey player in the UK before venturing into the cinematic industry, becoming an actor, a screenwriter, and a director. His contribution to the filmography of Canada is expansive, varied, and wide-reaching. His work is infused with a deep commitment to addressing inequality, racism, and injustice. This is Charles Officer.
Hooray!
Wow. It's so hard seeing things like that. It's
That's
just like,
you.
whoa, that is me. A little...
That is completely you. So busy, so in demand. But I'm so glad that you're here today. Can you tell me why you made it a priority, because you are such a busy person, to be right here today?
Well, I love Real Canada. I love what they stand for. It's a unique organization that is really focused on the idea of storytelling and community and breaking boundaries through this amazing form of storytelling and medium that I've been blessed to be a part of. So, and it's so exciting to be speaking with you, and it's so exciting to be, I love connecting with the youth and the students. And what Real Canada also provided for me was, very early on with these tours where I go across the country and we'd be doing this particular thing for real. Mm-hmm. And so it's just beautiful, despite the films that have that connection, but it's just amazing to connect with the youth and students across the country. Like, that is an honor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you brought me on board, because you're the one that was like, Garvey should do this with me, because you and I we're old pals.
Yes, we are old pals. We're tribes people. We've been together for so many years, and there's real genuine love and respect, and yeah, we go back. So people, this is Garvey Bailey is my comrade, and when it came up to, and there's a difference between friends and comrades. Like,
for sure,
some of y'all may have to explore what that means for you, but yeah, and when it came up, like, who is a possibility, of course you came to mind.
Oh, you're so kind. Well, I'm just so glad to be here, because I feel like we're in a really interesting time to really be connecting with young people, connecting with those that are absolute doers. They want to be working towards something right now, because we're in this, we've had an incredible summer, we've had an incredible year of change and shifting, and these conversations are happening right now. And I'm getting an Amber Alert.
Yes.
Okay.
Me
so I'm
too.
going to just take a quick peek at it.
Yes.
Just to make sure. Okay. Great. So we might get another Amber Alert, just to alert everyone that it might happen again. So if we have to just stop for a second, just take a look. But no, I just wanted to say that I am just really, I'm thrilled that we get to be here together in this time to speak with young people about what's going on. And one of the reasons you wanted to be part of this live stream is that you're interested in engaging with your audience, and especially with young people. And of course, for those of you watching at home or in your classrooms, we want to encourage you to be part of this conversation. It's just not going to be me and Charles blabbing at each other, because that's boring. Oh, it's okay. Maybe it's not boring, but we could do better.
We
do it all the time. We could do that. We could do better. So go to the Discuss tab in the Meeting Pulse and send us your comments and tell us how the film made you feel, what it made you think about, or reflect on. And we will absolutely be reading some of those comments throughout the show. And of course, it is impossible to speak one-on-one with everyone watching this live stream. So one of the things you did in advance of this event was you mentioned that you went around the country recording these roundtable discussions with youth from everywhere and who are participating in this program. So can you tell me a little bit about that experience, what that was like?
Yeah, I think speak with Jack and what we can do. I mean, this has been a pivotal time. Like, how do we maintain this connection that has been built through Real Canada, which is amazing. And there's nothing that can take away from that personal interaction. But the idea was, I mean, based around what is really coming to the forefront of the conversation right now about anti-Black racism and systemic racism and the idea of colonization within our school curriculums. And I feel like, it was important to try to engage with youth through this new virtual space and have provide a space for them to actually, articulate how they're feeling.
Well, you know what? I'm going to throw to one of those roundtable discussions. I would love to show a clip from one of those. So let's go to that clip right now.
After watching the film, I was emotional afterwards. And the funny thing is, my mom's coworker, she actually, it was a gift, but she actually gave it to me, the book.
Wow.
And I mean, I found the documentary to be like incredibly profound. I've seen it. I've watched it like twice now. One part that always just like makes my blood boil is the it's like the television interview section where Desmond Cole is speaking, and there's a man beside him. I don't even know his name. That man makes my blood boil every time. Just because obviously he's a very racist person, but the fact that he felt comfortable saying all the things he said on national television with like no repercussions, and he felt safe saying those things about other people and about like a social justice human rights movement in like this day and age was so just upsetting.
It's always a pattern. It's like a Black man dies and then everyone gets really upset about it. Everyone's like, Black Lives Matter for maybe a week, 2 weeks, max 3 weeks. And then everyone forgets about it. And it's like, it never happened until it happens again. And then cycle repeats. And it's sort of like, it takes tragedy for people to really pay attention and like see what the Black community goes through every day. Because for us, it's not a cycle, it's a daily occurrence. But for the rest of the world, it's like every couple of weeks, every month or two, So it's sad that it takes a tragedy for people to really see what's going on. And then even when they see what's going on, they ignore it after a couple of weeks pass. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, we saw how it only lasted for a month until the media stopped covering it. And then it basically dissipated into nothing. And we had performative activism that was a really big problem during it too, because we had all these people voicing their opinions on it, and then they just stopped. They stopped making change, and as said during the film, pocket change.
After watching the film, I realized that how many of us are thinking that that we don't really realize how much racism does exist just because we haven't experienced it for ourselves. We haven't seen it with our own eyes. But I feel like watching films like showing it to younger generations can keep a lot of generations from preventing this.
What more do Black people have to do to get their basic rights? Like how many more marches need to be marched? Like how many more riots need to be rioted? Because like it's been going on for such a long time now.
It's a very emotional question that you've asked. It's because you're absolutely right. There's basic rights. There's basic human rights. this question that you're asking amongst ourselves in this group is a question that you have to ask those individuals in power around you directly. You know, just when you asked me earlier, but it's amazing watching and just listening to the youth that were on that round table. It just brought me back to a really emotional place of listening to them and what they're. It is heartbreaking, and this connects to even why I made the film. But to listen to young folks, like these are teenagers who are at literally, you know, acknowledging that this has been going on for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then we have grown folks who works within the system of things who are just in a place of listening and learning about this thing. Mm. Like it's fascinating to me that they see it so clearly. It's, you know, Desmond Cole is someone who I respect and as a storyteller and someone in the space of reporting media that is important to our culture and according to our experiences. Again, within our media world, there aren't many Black journalists. Mm-hmm. He wrote an amazing story about his personal experience that resonated with me because they weren't far from the tree. You know what I'm saying? Like I had experienced similar things. I'm a Black male with the last name Officer. You know, as simple as the microaggressions of being pulled over by the police and being harassed because of my last name and being Black is like, these are things that are real, that happen to us, that create a sense of terror within one's soul whenever they get pulled, they don't know what's going to happen. So that insurity of feeling safe within the skin that we're in is something that we have been experiencing and living, and it feels, you know, growing up in Canada, that there's been a disconnect to that real experience. And so when Desmond and this article came out, and a lot of individuals were very interested in trying to make a film, and I was approached by a couple of production companies, and you know, there were no Black producers that were, you know, in that place of reaching out, and which is interesting, the amount of individuals that want to jump on this thing, want to jump on Desmond, his voice, and we had a discussion, and he literally said he'd only make this film with me. And I had to think about it because it wasn't something that I knew would be important to make, but it was something that I had to think about how much, you know, of my personal self this is going to take, the investment to revisit this world that we live with, and to, you know, go to Ferguson, all these ideas, to go to Halifax, to go across the country and bring this story to the forefront means a personal, soulful investment. So I have to think about that. But at the end of the day, for me, storytelling, filmmaking is more than about me. It is about us, and I believe in building an archive. So there were those factors that came into taking this on. And Desmond and I, you know, he was going to be working on a book. So I also felt it was a great way for him to actually motivate him to get writing and crack-a-lacking on the project. And also, because we'd be collecting all these amazing stories. And I'd use things for the film, and he'd, you know, have this book. So, because usually a book is written and then you make a film, kind of. Right. But we do things our way.
And you did it your way, and you did it so beautifully and with such heart. You know, there's a lot of feeling in this film. I have to repeat that if you are having trouble with Meeting Pulse right now, that you can watch the stream on YouTube directly at realcanada.ca/livestream1. So that's realcanada.ca/livestream1. And I know that Meeting Pulse is acting up just a little bit, maybe too much power in the room. I don't know, maybe that's why. But if you are having trouble, please just go to that YouTube link, realcanada.ca/livestream1. Charles, before we continue talking, we're going to ask our live audience to answer another question. So over to Anik.
Thank you, Garvia. So we've just launched a new poll on Meeting Pulse, asking you to let us know if you were surprised by any of the content of the film. So I'm going to ask you to go into the poll tab in Meeting Pulse and give us your answer there. You'll have different options that you can choose from. So maybe you were a little bit surprised, maybe you were very surprised, maybe you weren't surprised by anything in there. And as you'll see on the graph that's being shown on screen right now, some of you are voting right now. And it seems that most of you are saying that you were surprised by some of the new things in there, but not by everything. Yeah, so please keep voting. I can see that you're voting, keep voting, and we'll see the graph change as you do so. We also have some really great comments coming in, and I'd love to take the time to read just one here. You sent in, I think that this documentary is a great opportunity for more people to become aware of this injustice and the systemic racism that has plagued the system for too long. And I couldn't agree more. That's definitely something that came up during the roundtables, that this documentary films are such a great way to learn because you get to hear other people's stories. So once you have participated in the poll, if you've been able to do that now, we'd love for you to go and elaborate on your answers in the Discuss tab on Meeting Pulse. So if you were surprised by the film, tell us why, and tell us maybe what scenes in the film surprised you the most. And if you weren't surprised, why not? So please just keep asking your questions and sending in your comments. And Garvia and Charles, it looks like towards the end of that poll, most of the students who had already voted, they were surprised by at least some of the content in the documentary. Is that what you would have expected?
Thanks so much, Anik. I find that fascinating. A lot of you out there are telling us that the film made you think about things that had happened in your own lives as well. So there's the surprise element of it. Were you surprised by that poll, Charles?
Not really, because I do feel like it is there, like you're saying, there's experiences that I'm sure some who viewed it have experienced and have feel. And then there are some things I think for even within that surprise could be from, what the experience that there were actually, a Black family in Saskatoon, like, you know what I mean? In this film, that we are across this country, or the surprised by, a journalist who gets paid, pretty decently for a column on national television, can be so ignorant to, what is actually happening on the ground floor within a city when we're talking about something like carding, we're talking about, the function of policing. I mean, we were talking about this when we were making this film, it was 2016, right? And so it's fascinating that there are some surprises that would probably, I felt like it would be mixed. It feels about right to me. Because I'd be a little scared if everyone was really surprised by everything.
Yeah, true.
Because it'll mean that, no one's not been paying attention.
Not paying attention at all.
Yeah.
So a whole lot of you telling us that the film made you think about things that had happened in your own lives. The young people in the round table had some things to say about that as well. So let's have a listen.
I moved to Canada like a couple of years back, and we were expecting Canada to be so different from the US. Like we were like into the stereotypes of all Canadians are nice, And so I moved here, and the first day of school, I wasn't expecting this at all, but someone just came up to me and they were like, yo, N-word. And I've never I have been called it, but never to this extent where it was so easy to say. And so it was like within the first 15 minutes of school too. And so I was just like completely shook. Like, is this like what people say here? Like, I didn't know how to deal with it either, because I know it's not a nice word. Like, you just don't use that word to people. But I don't know. I always have these conversations with my friends, like, why is the N-word appropriate to say to people? And it's like, because we're coming at it as a way of friendship, you know, like, hey, my N-word. And I'm just like, okay, but that's not what the word is designed for. Like, it's an oppression word, you know? It's not meant to uplift anybody like Buddy is. And so you're saying that you're completely like contradicting our friendship, because yeah, you can mean it in a friendship way, but that's not what the word means. So anytime you call me that, you're not helping our friendship in any way, shape, or form. If anything, you're just like decreasing its value because you're so comfortable saying that to me.
I don't look Black, of course. I'm mixed, but I've been profiled for Indigenous, and I've had experiences that really took away my youth and innocence. Like, I saw portrayed in the film, the kids running and everything. And I noticed that sometimes my opinion doesn't matter, and I know that, of course, I don't experience it the same way, but it's hard to have a voice in a community where I live because we don't have groups like that. We can't because either it's viewed as, oh, we're just gonna get in trouble, or they're just acting up.
I'm a white person, so obviously I will never understand racism to the extent that people of color do, but I kind of like, I hear things that wouldn't outright be said to people of color, because like sometimes like racist people say like racist things towards me, not towards me, to me, expecting me to agree with them. Even with all the efforts being made, so many people feel so comfortable saying horrible things, and then they expect like, oh, like the white people, they'll agree with me, like people will agree with me, it's safe, it's fine.
I was like at the corner of this like convenience store with my dog, and this like white man and his wife came up to me, and they started like yelling at me. And the white guy, he called me the N-word, like very, very hard, like no remorse. Like he knew exactly what he was doing, and I was kind of like in panic mode, so I kind of just kept saying like, leave, just leave, over and over again. And I just remember like in that moment kind of feeling like very alone, and like I wish I could have said more because what they were saying was terrible, but in that moment it was literally just, I was kind of just like, I need to protect myself and my life, because it could have gone so much worse.
Levy, it's not your fault. These things happen so often. Like, it's not your fault that you couldn't come up with like the perfect statement, the perfect comeback to say to him. Like, you know, stuff like that happens to everyone. Sadly, it's normal in the Black community, unfortunately. But just like, it's okay. It's not your fault. There's nothing you could have done. It's sad that the bystanders couldn't have said anything, because that really shows that the impact with allies. And you know, it's really important to have allies within the white community also, because there has to be someone within the community who can point out racist and say, hey, this is not okay. Like, just because you're not Black doesn't mean that you have to be anti-Black. You know, you can be an ally without having to be Black. So yeah, but it's not your fault, so don't worry about it. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just so touched by the compassion and care that was shown between the participants right there as well. Like the content was one thing, but the compassion and care and the wisdom that was shared amongst the roundtable participants was just wonderful. You know, Charles, as you're off screen, but I can see that you're even though you've heard this already from these roundtable participants, you're hearing this for the second time now, listening to this tape. I can see that you're having a reaction to it, that it's a visceral reaction to hearing these young people, hearing their stories, what they're dealing with in their own lives. What's going through your mind right now?
Yeah, you know, it just speaks to the effect this oppressive way of being, you know, trickles into one's life at such a young age. That people have to recognize that it is debilitating, and it's paralyzing, and it affects the way that one young person operates in this world, what they believe is possible, what their fear, how they feel safe. And it breaks my heart that they listen to it again of what they actually have to deal with. Like, it's like, why can't we do better for them? You know, I'm mad about that. And it's beautiful to see, you know, this generation of youth like being able to jump in. Like, I was so in shock when I was listening to that. I couldn't even find the words to respond in that moment.
Yeah. And
this young woman jumps in and provided that space of support so quickly, you know, and they're not living in the same place. You know, and that to me is beautiful. And that is actually the core of what it is. The message that it is like, there are people out there that you're going to encounter, and it's not your fault.
Yeah.
You know, and these are adults that were out there in that situation, threatening a youth, a young person, someone who is supposed to be, that we speak about, that is our future.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So.
Such, there's just so much. There's so much we can just keep talking about those clips. But I really wanted to share, because we have lots of comments coming from you. Here's one about personal experiences again, that these are some of the comments that we're getting right now. This film made me feel very proud of Desmond Cole. I also felt disappointed and a bit scared that these things are happening in the country in which I live. It makes me reflect very deeply on certain things that have happened to me in the past, which I originally thought I was being too sensitive or cynical about. I'm afraid that these microaggressions were real and steeped in generations of racist ideologies. I'm mad. Wow.
Mad too. and this personal experience is speaking to this word that is bouncing around, systemic. And that systemic sort of way that racism works is it steeps into these microaggressions, that it forces one to question what they're thinking and experiencing. And are they crazy? Is this real? Is this not? What does this mean? And I'm so proud of Desmond, because he opened up this conversation in a way years ago that people are catching on to now and really engaging in at this moment. So I'm proud of him for that, because he's scared too. He's been threatened, like, as a writer and as a journalist, and he still pursues it with authority. But it is scary. And you need allies and comrades to help you. And that's why I stand with Desmond as well, because he needs that support so he can feel safe. We have to protect each other. So the thematic of this sort of how deep the effects of racism, anti-Black racism, and how the colonial ideologies are still so embedded in our culture, and to think that it doesn't is the wrong way to try to think of any sort of way of uniforming or finding any sort of space of what equality, racial justice means. You can't deny the thing. Like, and if folks are in the space of denying one's experiences in this, then you are actually sitting on the wrong side where we're going.
That's right. Absolutely. I'm going to share a few more of our reactions here. I felt uncomfortable during this film. What really struck me was the TV broadcast that Mr. Cole was on with a white man and the things that man felt were completely acceptable to say to his face. It made me queasy. Another one says, this film put me in awe. The Black community has suffered so much, and yet they still stand, they still protest, and they're still fighting for a better future. Resilience on the highest level. And this one here, it didn't surprise me that there is a long history of racism in Canada. People always try to compare us to the United States, but we are not innocent. That
Powerful.
Is a very powerful statement.
Very powerful.
What is your reaction to that one?
I mean, the statements before are equally as powerful. The last one really resonates because it was actually also at the core of why Desmond and I wanted to make this film. We have not been archived in the history that enslaved Black peoples were in this land, on this land. There's a story of the Underground Railroad that people celebrate, but some things were happening as well. And we have this amazing museum in Halifax that speaks to that. We had to capture that. This idea that, you know, racism is borderless. It's comparative suffering isn't the way to find a solution. You know, and it's unfortunate that the amplification of Canadians, or the ideology that how can we be in a place of awakening where people are saying, well, I'm ready to listen and I'm ready to learn now, but you haven't acknowledged, you know, what has actually happened in the past historically, what is happening in the present. How are you jumping that? If there wasn't anything to listen into, to learn about, then the question is, then how have you been denying that this exists? Right. And so Canada, US in this conversation, why, you know, Desmond and I would always talk about who's the right victim, and who would that right victim be for folks to acknowledge, you know, and we would talk about who that is, and it takes this tragedy, and again, when young folks are seeing, you know, a reflection of where they come from themselves, and the disregard for that life in such a brutal way, it has ignited a conversation and a movement that has been going on. Like, we are literally, you and I are standing on the shoulders of those who've been fighting this resilient fight for generations.
Absolutely.
You know,
for sure. So well said. At the start of the show, we asked all of you to tell us how the film The Skin We're In made you feel. Just 1 or 2 words is what we asked for. We put those words up into a word cloud. The bigger the word, the more of you said that word. So it's just by volume. If you said the word a lot, the word will show up on the word cloud in bigger fonts. So words like sad, I mean, sad is the biggest one there. Disappointed. Do you see more? Angry, Charles. Angry is big.
Yes. Disappointed. People. I mean, it's people. It's feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing that's amazing. It's I mean, those are but sadness. It's you know, it speaks to something that is, what do we do with that now?
Yes.
Like, sadness is a real feeling. You know, empathy, compassion, all these things roll into this. But awareness has to come through the sadness, of a sense of duty and a sense of voice. We're using the word voice and being vocal and standing up right now. Yeah. And just by us being on this conversation with these amazing group of students, this is what you need to be doing. You are a part of the revolution now.
Yes. And that brings me to action, though. You know,
Yes,
like we talk about this, but a part of having these conversations is moving towards action, right?
that's right.
There was another comment that said, what Desmond Cole says near the end of the film resonated with me. He talks about how white people in Canada saying they stand with Black people, but failing to take action. I think for me, it's time to stop talking and start doing. Wow.
Wow.
So many of you are expressing frustration. Anger was one of the big words that was up on the cloud, surprise about the realities of systemic racism, and also your desire to do something about it. And a lot of you are writing to ask for help, for the resources, asking how to get involved, what you can do to advocate and for change, not only in your communities, but within your families, maybe within your schools, within your peer groups. It all starts there. So what would you say to them, Charles?
You know, every movement starts with the self.
Mhm.
And I think that you can join a group, you can join a crowd, but I think it's important to define your part in that. And you can be revolutionary, and you can be a part of the movement and part of the solution in the most simplest of ways. And one of the most simplest ways you can do this, and I'm not being facetious here, but here it is: don't be racist. Don't be racist. And what that means is being aware of when you're in a circle with your peers, when you hear something, when you are seeing something in your school, when you're seeing something on the street. You know, we have these devices, these phones, we can actually participate by calling things out all the way through. If it smells a certain way, if you're aware of it, it probably is. So, and there are respectful, productive ways to approach it, but I'm not saying that's not going to come without resistance. So how are you going to feel that you can manage and adapt to the resistance that may come when you call something out?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you did an incredible job during the roundtable, the discussions that you had of asking about this, about what the action is. So I want to go back to that roundtable before we continue this conversation, to hear about what students are saying about this particular issue.
My school, we're basically changing our code of conduct into this anti-racism theme, and it's like we're like putting posters around the school, we're like doing little cutouts, and it's like we're like trying to make the theme out there. So.
Yeah, I recently quit my provincial climate group over racism. In there, they drove out every single person of color, and then when it came to the Black Lives Matter, they got involved in it. 5 white leaders, and they didn't take any opinions from anyone else that wasn't them, and they used their voice, and they basically covered up everything they went over.
I've always been very aware of like my white privilege and just like the kind of like impact that I can have without like speaking over people of color who obviously know so much more than I do about this. But so like the way that I've kind of gotten involved in anti-racism efforts, I guess, is I've just always been very like outspoken.
Currently, I'm just kind of like speaking in my class and kind of just speaking off my experience, because I think it shocks a lot of people in my class a bit, the kind of like racism that happens here, and like the racism that it speaks, because I can like, it's kind of hard, but I can see like when I talk about my experiences, I can kind of see like little light bulbs. But I feel like some people don't realize how big of an issue it actually is, and how it affects people's lives. So I'm just trying to like bring bring that out.
The conversations and the actions aren't over yet, right? So this doesn't end at the end of this conversation, and that although that we're living across the country, that we're seeing that, you know, we're having similar experiences. I just thank you for taking the time, and obviously, like, it's amazing to speak with you, and it's a lot that you're offering and thinking about, but really try to take care of yourselves through it, you know, the best you can, because it's an extra space of thought and energy, and it takes a lot out of you. So try to take care of each other too in that process.
Charles, how does it feel to hear about what these kids are doing? Like, they are, I mean, action is it's happening.
It's happening.
So how are you feeling?
I feel inspired. I feel
Yeah.
inspired and hopeful. I think we can, especially in this time. I know it's so hard for youth right now as well. I mean, mental health, like all these things that are loaded, to fight for the hope and fight for the inspiration. You know, I love that from the smallest things, and it's not small action to be posting things in your community about what you see. There's someone who, you know, ended up posting awareness notices about the sort of figurines that are on lawns.
Right.
They're, you know, and that was a beautiful action by a young person who boldly went through this community to say, look, you don't know the history of what these racist images, these figurines on your lawn mean, but I would love for you to take, like, that is an action. You know, it's you know, you can, I mean, when people have been you know, skeptical about Black Lives Matter, like 2016, and then to see now across the globe, people absorbing the context of what's been happening. It's that's a massive movement, and they're all these different spaces. I mean, in your school curriculum, what books and what part of Black history is incorporated in the curriculum? Indigenous stories and educated, like, our textbooks described our people, Black and Indigenous people, in a very, very gross way, not that long ago.
Right.
You know, and so how do we address that? How do we take control over the things that we want to absorb, learn, that you know, that's happening out in the world, that can actually help us and equip us? And I think this is responsibility on teachers, right? We're talking about education.
Absolutely.
Right. And that goes beyond math and sciences. If we're spending this amount of hours in an education institution every day, how much, especially now in this time when students aren't even in the same room, how are we learning about each other and where we come from? Canada is supposed to be, or speaks to, the space that immigrants are welcome, no matter where you are from, and we welcome and this is an ideology that's pitched, but on the ground floor, it's not as smooth as it's presented. And so I think we just have a duty to, if we're you know, find some Black friends, find some Indigenous friends, you know, like why not? If you count your last 5-10 Instagram posts and you don't have a person of color or something about it in those posts, check yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank all of you for all of the amazing comments and questions, and thank you, Charles, for throwing down some truth.
Thank you, Gabia.
I really hope that you are all reading each other's questions and comments, because they're amazing. Two of you actually asked similar questions, and these questions are for Charles. They're such good questions. Considering the strong emotions surrounding racism and the history of Black people, how did making this film affect you? And this question, what difficulties or struggles did you face in the process of making this film? Now, you know, that how did this film affect you question is someone is a journalist in the making, because that is bang on. So tell me about
Amazing
those
questions.
Give me some answers.
Yes. You know, there's a feeling about going into this subject that was hard, you know. I'm emotionally invested, but you know, I got to experience and go and connect with individuals across this country and in North America that were powerful, that infused me with why I do what I do, and infused me with the passion and you know, it's like you need a community to keep you flowing, to keep you up, to give you energy that you feed off of and you understand. That's what going around and making this film gave me. And so that is perpetuated in the work that I continue today in other forms. It was very hard to sit, you know, with Andrew Loku's sister, you know, and still to this day, the story around Andrew Loku has not been treated with the respect and dignity it deserves. We're still fighting for that. Right? And because it was a news flash for a moment, and we're trying to keep that relevant, it's a challenge to leave this woman. It's hard when you're making documentary and connect with individuals. And Mike Brown's friends, you know, in Ferguson, like, to know that I leave and these brothers are still there without their friend. He's gone. And so these experiences are hard to actually to find a way through, but I understand that it's serving something larger, and it's an amazing way for us to connect our community. So yeah, mixed feelings, but I'm very proud and happy that this film exists. You know.
Yeah. And you can take such pride in that it's reaching so many through programs like this, and just across the board. I think that you bring such a, and I've said this before, bring such a humanity through this film to the big questions that we have, and I think that's the key, to bring those narratives, like you talk about Andrew Loku's family and seeing Mike Brown's friends. Just incredible. We've received so many great questions and comments. We can barely get to all of them. No. We have just a few minutes left, so let's see if we can get through a few quickly before we go. And they're going to be tough to get through quickly, but we're going to try. Yes. All right. If you could tell your 10-year-old self, I would love to meet 10-year-old Charles. He's adorable. Anyway, if you could tell your 10-year-old self anything, what would it be?
Wow, it's an amazing question. Wow. Boy. It is crazy to say this, but, and it reflects back to another question, but there was a question or a response to feeling uncertain about what you're receiving with microaggressions and what is actually you're experiencing around you. You're young and it's hard to know what's what, but those instincts, I would say, younger Charles, trust some of those instincts that you were having, and perhaps some of the choices that I made between from 10 to 20 would have been a little different. And it's hard to say that because you're so young and you're trying to grasp at things. But I would also say, you know, dream big, dream big, dream
huge.
Big, and blue sky everything.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Everything's a possibility.
Yeah, great. Yeah. What kind of response have you had to this film from police? Have you heard any support or criticism from officers about the film?
You know, we have a scene where we're actually in a police board meeting, and you know, Saunders is there, former police chief, and it wasn't a pleasant experience, I'll be honest. And you know, police have not been, it's very interesting how there's a police officer who I met, a Black police officer, while showing Unarmed Verses years later, who reflected on this, on the skin we're in, and thanked me for it. Because this Black police officer is having his own experiences within the force that this film spoke to specifically as well. Now, you know, police wear their color and they stand on a certain side. And so I hadn't received any sort of interaction with police officers around that at all. I will point out the mayor, who sits into these meetings, who actually, and the mayor is a part of who is sort of process of appointing a chief of police. Now, you know, the place that he holds with that, and we've had interaction about this film, and demanding that the addressing of how the police force has been handling and working with the Black community needs to be addressed. I don't even want to use the word reform, because I think we're past that. It means reconstructing. And that is a larger, massive conversation that we were initiating years ago, and now we're seeing things about defunding the police.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's, but I know that Desmond, and I'm going to speak out of turn, but he's received threats from police officers. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is someone speaking about a personal experience. It's like this: if you saw someone on the street bleeding from a wound and they say that they need help and that I'm bleeding, would you say, sort it out yourself, you're good? I don't, like, there's some sort of doubt about this situation that's happening. We have had, you know, data, we've had the news,
studies,
studies, like everything is there.
Yeah.
For real action and readjusting our thinking around how policing works in our society, and that is an ongoing, real conversation to be had.
Thank you so much for that answer. It's a great answer. We're almost out of time, if you can believe it. And I really do want to mention that you are still doing so much wonderful work, including Akilah's Escape, which recently premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. A dramatic feature. It deals with a lot of the topics we've been discussing here today. Can we, I'm just going to show a short clip of your film. Okay.
Please. You know what this is? Yeah, you Area 6? He running with Area 6 generals. Word is, they affiliated with Jamaican Massive. Garrison Army. You know what that means? So you a killer, huh? You done got yourself some grown man shit, shorty. These little baby gangsters getting baby. Kingsway Lions riding with you. Just tell me what you want to do.
Tell me where to find them.
All I want to ask you, my friend, is where can we see it?
Wow. We're still on a festival circuit right now. We were just secured a US distribution. We're very excited about that. So we will be launching in theaters and in North America in the spring of 2021. Beautiful. So very excited about that. And there will be a soundtrack and graphic novel and all kinds of goodies to come that way.
Love it.
Yes. So we're planning it properly, you know, through this pandemic and making sure that we're doing it right.
Great. So I've got two last comments that came in from the many that have been coming in. The emotional ground on which this project is built is strong and generous.
Wow.
Thank you. How lovely is that?
That's beautiful. Thank you.
This film made me feel so proud to see Black representation and to be further educated about Black problems. Really made me be proud as a Black person.
Amazing.
So,
wow, that's fantastic.
It's lovely.
That's huge, and it's an honor to hear that. Like, because you know, we work in these sort of spaces, and the whole idea is what we do is to reach and to share and to expose and raise awareness, but most of all raise action.
Yes.
And I'm honored that it's having an effect in some way, shape, or form.
Charles, I want to thank you so much for your generosity in your time, in your generosity in your thoughts, for speaking with us today and for participating in the first live stream in Real Canada's anti-racism program. I just need to bring Anik back into the fold. Where are you, my girl?
Hey.
Hey. So I want to thank both of you, Garvia and Charles. Thank you. I know that I speak for everyone who was participating when I say that this was a truly wonderful conversation. So thank you for spending the last hour with us. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and your knowledge and your stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you
again.
Thank you both so much. And thank you, Real Canada, so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if you would want to keep learning about anti-racism, about systemic racism in Canada, about what is currently happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, and what you can do, you can visit realcanada.ca/anti-racism resources to learn more. And if watching the film and the conversations we've had today or your daily experiences are upsetting in any way, here are some resources where you can speak to someone. This marks the very end of this live stream. We will be seeing many of you next week when Ronnie Dean Harris will be taking over the hosting duties and talking with Anishinaabe filmmaker and activist Serene Fox, the host of Michelle Latimer's documentary series, Rise. It promises to be a really great conversation as well, and we are looking forward to it. As we leave off right now, you'll see the names of all of your schools again on screen, and I want to thank each and every one of you for participating. Until next time, have a lovely day and be safe.